Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Amy plays Turnabout and says, I'll tap all of your lands. Nick then taps all of his lands and says, okay, I'm floating some mana in response. Amy replies, alright, in that case, I want to tap all of your creatures. Nick then calls for a judge and protests that Amy cannot change her mind like this. What is the appropriate infraction, penalty, and fix? Okay, so the first thing that you want to think about whenever you've got one of these policy type of questions is what's the first thing that one of the players did that's against the rules? And in order to really zero in on this, let's take a close look at what the official process of casting Turnabout should have looked like. So you probably already know that casting a spell is composed of several different steps that you take in a specific order. You probably also already know that one of those steps is choosing the target. However, what's interesting here is that the other decisions that Turnabout asks you to make are not part of the official list of steps given in the comprehensive rules. With that being the case, you actually make all the other decisions for Turnabout at the time when it's resolving, not when you cast it. So when Amy said, I'll cast Turnabout, tapping all of your lands, then she was actually giving Nick some extra information before she needed to. The only thing that she really needed to say was, I'll play Turnabout, targeting you. Now, is it illegal for Amy to do this? And the answer to that is no, it's not. It's perfectly valid, and that's backed up by this policy here. So you can see that it is legal for a player to propose a block of actions that they otherwise would be able to take and ask their opponent to accept that block of actions. So that means that Amy has proposed a block of actions that she could legally take, in other words, playing the Turnabout and targeting Nick, and then when it resolves, choosing to tap all of his lands, and she's asking Nick if that's okay. The next step in the game sequence as described is that Nick tapped all of his lands in response to the Turnabout. Is this legal? And even though Amy has proposed a game sequence of actions, Nick is of course in no way obligated to follow through with this sequence. Amy can't use this as a trick to shortcut past opportunities that Nick would normally have to respond, so there's of course no problem at all with Nick breaking up this sequence and making a play that doesn't correspond to the one that Amy suggested for him. Okay, so finally we're up to the final thing that Amy did in this game sequence. She's changed her mind about what she wants to do with this Turnabout in response to the information that Nick had. Now, this does represent a little bit of an irregularity because of course Amy kind of acted out of turn when she gave up some information about what she was planning on doing with Turnabout. But is it a problem for Amy to change her mind now? And the answer is no. As we can see with this policy, if your opponent interrupts a sequence that you propose by doing some extra game actions that aren't part of what you discussed in the middle of it, then you're only held to the actions that you said that you would take up until the point where your opponent was intervening. Anything after that, well, it's fair game if you want to change your mind. And of course, if I was Amy, I feel like it would definitely make sense to change your mind about what you wanted to have that Turnabout doing. So, in this case, we've gone through the entire sequence of game actions that both players took, and there hasn't been a single instance of someone doing something that was against the rules. Accordingly, there's no infraction here, and you can just have the players continue playing. Okay, so there's a couple of loose ends that I want to tie up. First of all, it is kind of a shady one from me to have a rules question where the answer is everything's fine, just have the players continue playing. Of course, in a real Magic setting, you could be called to a table and have the players have a judge call where that's the correct answer. I hope you guys don't mind that I balanced my range a little bit and gave you a little bit of a curveball here. The next thing I wanted to talk about is maybe some of you are wondering, well, okay, what if Amy would have said, instead of I want to tap all of your lands, I want to untap all of my lands. Now, it is not legal for Amy to change the target of Turnabout from Nick to herself. That's because the target is one of the choices that she has to make during the process of casting Turnabout. The point where Nick intervened comes after the point where Turnabout was cast, so that means that this decision is one that Amy would be stuck with. So if this were to happen, I would probably give a warning to Amy for a game rule violation, attempting to change the target when she was not able to. And then I would probably back up to immediately before she tried to make this decision and tell her that she had to stick with the target that she had already specified. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.